So this entire episode contains spoilers regarding the film The Substance. Welcome to the world of The Substance, a 2024 satirical body horror film that pulls no punches in its commentary on fame, identity, and the grotesque lengths we all go to for public validation. So this was co-produced and written and directed by a talented French filmmaker. This film is not just a visual feast, it is a brutal and hilarious commentary on our obsession with youth and beauty. Now, I've asked myself, why is American culture so obsessed with youth and wants to just keep getting people younger and younger? It's because we are becoming more immature as a culture. Our lust for youth is dependent on our immaturity. We don't want to mature. We want to stay emotionally immature and not responsible for anything. And that is why everything is chaotic and there's no accountability across any business, political group at all. This external look of youth has a lot to do with the internal refusal to be mature, to take responsibility, to be accountable. All those things have a lot to do with our obsession with youth. This film stars the iconic, the majestic, the magical, the everything Demi Moore as Elizabeth, a fading celebrity who is an aerobics instructor on TV. She resorts to a bizarre black market drug to create a younger self, played by Margaret Qualley. One of the opening shots is what I really love. It already shows the wear and tear of the lifespan of a cherished celebrity who gets a star on the Walk of Fame. We start with a wide on Elizabeth Sparkle getting her Walk of Fame, and we hear the crowd adoring her, the paparazzi, and then we see tourists walk over the star, the Elizabeth Sparkle star, and we see the wear and tear, the weather. We see baby strollers. We see celebrities say, oh, remember that girl? What was she in? And we just see that people forget, you know, the momentary celebrity. And if you've ever been on the Walk of Fame and walked, there are so many celebrities that people don't even remember that were the toast of the town during their day. You probably walk by, some people remember Rudy Valentino, but does a regular person of today who's worshiping TikToker? No, probably not. So it just shows the wear and tear over time, the cultural amnesia that soon sets in. Elizabeth Sparkle's Walk of Fame gets cracked by weather and wear and tear, and it cuts to her teaching now an aerobics class. And Demi Moore looks great, and I love aerobics, so that's already my thing. I'm already in. And the use of liminal spaces is part of the storytelling in here. These long, empty hallways. So basically the plot is this. She goes into the restroom and she overhears a conversation that Dennis Quaid, who plays Harvey, an executive at the network where her fitness show is on, and he's introduced in the most grotesque way. It's a wide lens and it's a wide shot, but he walks right into the foreground while he's going to the restroom, and he's just so disgusting. He doesn't wash his hands. He's just gross, and he's saying, you know, derogatory things about Demi Moore's character, Elizabeth. He's saying that she's old. He doesn't care. She was nominated for an Oscar. He wants someone young and hot. This character just doesn't care that, you know, the differences in body direction. Like, Elizabeth is very demure and doesn't take up space, and she's very quiet and kind of withheld, whereas Dennis Quaid's character, the second time we see him is when he's firing Elizabeth in a restaurant where she's not eating, she's sitting, and he is taking up all the space in the shot. He's eating shellfish, and it's disgusting. There's mustard, there's dip everywhere. It's just disgusting, and he leaves this plate of food. It's just disgusting. And so food right there is our secondary character. And as anyone who has body dysmorphia knows, food is something you restrict yourself from and then you crave. So you have this weird binary relationship with food. It's either, you know, you lust after it, but you can't have it. And this is a major issue in the duality of these two people, of these two ideas, and of these two force it. It has a lot to do with the monster that is created at the end. Body dysmorphia as a visual, grotesque monster. But that comes later. She is losing her show, and one of the shots I also love is that she sent flowers. So we have this wide shot of her alone in this huge apartment overlooking a city. I think it's LA. It's supposed to be LA. Overlooking LA. And she has received a bouquet of flowers that say, "Were," with the camera on. "Thank you for all your years with us. You were great." "Were" is a close-up shot. And that's something that sticks with her. The past term was, she knows she's fading. So, and she's looking through the newspaper. She looks and she sees that they're auditioning for her show. Hot, new, young actresses. And as she's driving down the street, she sees her billboard photo rip off, and she gets into a car accident. While she's at the doctor, the medical assistant looks very young. I mean, total filter face. Beautiful, poignant eyes. And he has a scar on his hand, okay? He has a scar on his hand. A birthmark, if you will. And he touches her spine, and he says, "Oh, you'd be a good candidate." And she doesn't really know what that means, but he hands her coat, and when she gets home, she opens up her coat, and there is a note that says, "This changed my life." And she opens up the box, and inside it says, "The substance." The substance. And there's a number on it. She throws it away. Because she doesn't really understand, come on. It is a little weird. So the next day, though, she gets triggered. She calls the number, and she basically is sent something in the mail. And she opens up this black envelope with two little logos. Very, minimalistic, the packaging. Anyway, she opens it up, and it's a key card, and it just says 503. It has an address. And so this is one of my favorite moments. There's so many red flags. It's first of all, it's called The Substance. I love that she never even Googles it or looks it up on, to see, what is this? Anyone else get it? Doesn't even look for a Reddit sub. The lack of technology, she doesn't even, that's one of the things I really liked about it. It was I would have gone on a Reddit sub thread and been like, "Hey, anyone got the substance? Oh yeah, it turned me into a monster. Don't do it." She didn't, that never happens. So she goes to a sketchy area of what is supposed to be Los Angeles, but is not. Walks through this industrial wasteland. Everything's kind of abandoned. And then there's this spray painted address above this tiny nook in an alleyway that has a metal night guard up. Sketchy. That's one red flag if you haven't already counted. Anyway, the second red flag is, she uses her key card and the gate only goes up halfway, so she has to kind of bend down and crawl underneath to get the substance. So she goes inside this dark, very dark, no signage. Okay, I'd be out. So, but she goes through this tunnel and she gets to this room that's another liminal space. Suddenly, the space she gets into is very Kubrick. It's wide shot, looks a lot like Clockwork Orange, white tile walls, and has, once again, that minimalistic signage where it's just a bunch of mailboxes with numbers on them. She uses her key card and she opens up and gets her first package. She goes and she gets reads all the instructions. It looks a lot it's very complicated. It looks like trying to install your own cable at home, if you've ever done this without help. And the instructions are only activate once, have to alternate every 7 days. While you're alternating, you have to feed and you have to recharge daily. They never kind of tell her, you're going to have to stick this needle into the spine. Just kind of lack of guidance. She activates, she falls on the ground suddenly because basically her spine is giving birth to her alternate. And that alternate is, so Sue goes in for Elizabeth's job, gets the job, and talk about aerobics. I'm like, How is any normal person going to do this? Because that was crazy. It's basically, it's called Pump It Up, and it's a twerk fest. Sue has her new show. It's very successful. She's enjoying her life so much. She brings home a partner for the night, and she starts bleeding. Her nose starts bleeding because it's time for her to switch. And instead of switching, she borrows more from Demi Moore's spine. So then when they alternate, Demi Moore, Elizabeth wakes up and her finger rotted. She leaves and she wears gloves, and she is basically trying to figure out what's going on. And she sees, when she goes to this restaurant, it's filled with older people, like older people in their 80s. And they're all kind of sullen. And the first thought I had was like, this is all the alters on their 7 days, because it really, to me, it showed like how people in American society, especially LA, they age by themselves. And I thought that was what was really gross. But she keeps it, and this is used for later, so we're gonna come back to this much later. She calls him and she asks him out on a date, and she is going to meet him that night, and he's very excited. But they're in the bathroom. She's in the bathroom and she's trying to get ready, and all she sees is the younger Sue kind of making fun of her, and she can't look as good as this younger person. Like, she can't catch her partner's eye. She's competing with Sue, and she'll never, and she just basically loses her mind. She starts ripping off her makeup, and then we cut away to her sitting alone in the bed with Fred, the guy from high school, texting her consistently, like, are you okay? Where are you? I'm at the restaurant. And she doesn't go. And instead, she goes into the fridge and she eats. And then she has to alternate. So when Sue comes to, she sees piles of food everywhere. Not as bad as we're gonna see, but she sees in front of the TV an imprint of Elizabeth's body in front of the TV, and we see food all over. And Sue is very upset about this. During a taping for her Pump It Up, while she's shaking her butt and bending over, something starts to punch out of her gluteus maximus muscle. So everyone stops and they're like, do playback. So they're doing playback on her gluteus muscle. And she runs into the dressing room to try to see what the thing that's sticking out of her rump is. And as she pushes it through, she pulls it, she's like pulling it through, and she pulls it out of her belly button, and it is a chicken leg. It's a chicken leg. Yes, a chicken leg. She pulls, it's my favorite moment in the whole movie, is when she pulls a chicken leg, a fried chicken leg. I think it's rotisserie, actually. A rotisserie chicken leg out of her belly button. How many of you out there in the world have not thought about doing that once in your life, or thought it was possible with everything you've eaten? Same. I appreciated that, and I clapped. After this, she decides that she is going to overextend her stay a few more times on Elizabeth. So Elizabeth wakes up. She really looks bad. Her feet are hobbit-like. Her hair is wiry and gray. Half of her face is aged immensely. And she's starting to look a little like Yoda at this point. This is one of my favorite scenes, is when Demi Moore, she gets out this, it's a gift that Dennis Quaid's character gives her. He's like, my wife loves it. It keeps her busy. And it's like a French cookbook. You see Demi Moore, and she's screaming at the TV, like the manifestation of the older women that hate the younger women for being pretty. If you've ever worked in an office, if you've ever been a young woman and didn't know why older women were mean to you, well, I think it has a lot to do with that, and we're finally starting to talk about female on female crime. Demi is cooking, and it's disgusting, by the way. It recalls that image we saw Dennis Quaid where he's eating his shellfish, and that's her kitchen. Her kitchen is disgusting. The food is gross. There's close-up shots on sausages and shellfish and shrimp, and it's gross. It's not appetizing. You're not like, geez, I really want to eat some sausage right now. So she's yelling at the TV because Sue is making an appearance on what would probably be like a Jimmy Kimmel talk show, and she's talking, he's like, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, and did you watch, Elizabeth's show before you took over? And she's like, no, my mom did though. Yeah. Demi Moore is yelling back at Sue. So Sue emerges from slumber to see that the house is insane. Elizabeth has left the house a work of insanity. She has put newspaper all over the giant windows. There's food everywhere, pots and pans, chicken bone, animal bones everywhere all over the house. It kind of reminded me of Girl Interrupted, under Girl Interrupted Daisy's bed, where it was full of chicken. Like, she kept all these chickens, the chicken bones. Remember that? So it kind of reminded me of that visual. Like, if Daisy got to eat all of the chicken she had under her bed, which I always thought was weird, is that he always brought a chicken and she left it under the bed. I never really understood what that was about. Maybe someone can clue me in. Sue gets tapped by the network to host the New Year's Eve countdown celebration, which is a big deal for her. She is going to host the New Year's, and she's doing the cover of Vogue and all these types of things. You're supposed to alternate every 7 days no matter what. There's consequences to not doing this, right? Well, Sue decides she's going to extract as much fluid from Elizabeth as she can to set it up for 3 months. So that's a long time. She goes 3 months without alternating at all. And she already has like a live-in boyfriend who's like some equally hot guy. It's basically the night before of the New Year's hosting gig she has. What happens is she's running out of substance. So when she goes to extract more fluid, it's only a little amount and it's dark. And it's time to alternate. Sue is getting so sick she has to alternate. And remember, her boyfriend, this new hot guy, is living with her, right? And he doesn't know that he also doesn't know that there's a secret chamber in their bathroom that is where the alternate lives. Out from the chamber emerges this grotesque version of Elizabeth, because she, remember, like, every time you don't alternate, it takes. So this grotesque, spinally humpbacked, bald, withery, monstrous Elizabeth emerges. She chases the boyfriend out. She calls the substance number hotline, and she says she wants to end, she's like, I want it to end. She goes down to the sketchy liminal place and gets the termination juice. While she's doing it, she decides not to, because she sees the flower, the bouquets that they send to Sue, and it says they're going to love you. And that goes back to that you were so loved, or you were so appreciated. Earlier we saw with, now she sees they're going to love you, and she looks over at her magical snow globe. She wants that adoration again. She wants the sparkles. Like, she wants it back. Right when in the middle of the termination, she stops it, and she gets the tube that has her blood and puts it into her alternate's heart. And Sue wakes up, and they look at each other. They get into a huge fight, and Sue basically kills the older alternate in a very gross way. It's pretty gross, pretty gnarly, very Trouble Every Day by Claire Denis, another French filmmaker. Very gross. Anyway, so that it's kind of like that. Voice of the substance man who's like, remember, you are one. Anyway, so she gets ready and she looks great, and she goes to her New Year's gig. And while she's there, her body starts to fall apart. Her ear falls off. Her teeth fall out. No one really seems to notice, but her body's falling apart and she's starting to bleed everywhere. So she runs back to the apartment, the activation fluid, and there's still some left. To get out of the pain she's in, she sticks the activation fluid in her body. And what results is a grotesque monster, the combination of Elizabeth, of There's everything in there. It's like a grotesque cell formation. And one of the things I love the visuals is like in the humpback of the new, it's called Monster Elizasu. In the shoulder of the monster is Demi Moore's face that kind of looks like the sleepaway camp face at the end, where her face is just like open wide and she's got these crazy looking eyes going back and forth, and she's like saying, "It's me! It's me!" like screaming. The lack of self-awareness this monster has. It has no self-awareness. It gets in the dress, it puts on the earrings and all the different ears, it curls the one strand of hair it has. It's a mess, okay? But the lack of self-awareness is one of the things I love, because in many ways this monster it's a manifestation of body dysmorphia. It's a manifestation of total narcissism and the lack of self-awareness that one has, and also like what people do to their bodies in chasing the external validation. Do I look good enough? Am I this? Like, they're willing to stick poison in their body. They're willing to do every single trend and it turns into a grotesque looking human when you don't have like any balance and any internal world that can kind of filter out what is really you and what is being put onto you. So this monstrous Elizasu is all these things. The creature itself is all the plastic surgeries, all the ideas, and all the grotesque things one feels about oneself personified into this literal monster. And the monster is not ashamed of itself. This is my favorite part. It's like the monster takes a cutout of Demi Moore Elizabeth's face and puts lipstick on the face, tapes it to their head, and is wearing this dress. And then, when they show up for their gig, the PA is like, "Oh, good, you're here," and just lets the monster in, like doesn't even notice, "Hey, this is a monster in a dress with a taped photo on its head." This is my favorite moment, is like all these pink showgirls are on this stage and everyone in the audience is older, 40 and over, and except there's like little young children that are kind of dressed like Sue. So there's a drum roll and there's all these pink showgirls in their bikinis showing off their bodies, a spotlight, and here comes Eliza Sue right to the microphone, and she has that taped photo of Elizabeth, and people are just sort of like confused, and all the showgirls are doing those nervous smiles that women do when they're like, "What is going on? I'm just gonna smile." Then she grabs a microphone with her grotesque fingers and arms, and she starts to talk, but her voice is muffled because like she has like 4 mouths and she's trying to speak, and then the picture falls off and the audience is aghast. They don't know what's going on, and she's like, "Yeah, it's me, it's me, it's me, it's Sue," and all this stuff. And behind her is Elizabeth and the humpback going, "No, it's me, it's Elizabeth," and they're kind of like fighting in this monster as she's holding the microphone. But this is before everyone starts yelling she's a monster. I thought she was like, what I thought she was gonna do was vomit fluid, because they were always vomiting like this fluid. But no, her one of her mouths gives birth to a giant breast, which cracked me up. This is something that's used to titillate and sell things is now grotesque, and it's emerging from this grotesque creature. Because one of the things they always have you get when you're in LA is, they have you get implants and things like that to fit their visual proportions. So I thought that was really hilarious. I laughed because it was disgusting. This perfectly fine breast was disgusting. The way it emerged and everything, it was disgusting. And it was perfect at the same time. So the audience is grossed out. That's when the "it's a monster" thing starts happening, and somebody comes on stage and tries to decapitate the monster, but then the whole thing turns into a carry fest in the public, and it's kind of getting what they deserved, which, in many ways, because this is a public issue, is like the public is driving the expiration date and the shelf life. What the public wants to see, the showbiz need is driving this. It's not everyone. It's always, the industry, but the industry is driven by viewers. The industry is driven by numbers and dollars. So wherever you spend your dollar is what the industry is going to chase. So it really is the public that is causing this. The public wants youth. The public does. So it's a public issue. It's a public immaturity issue. Anyway, the monster sprays blood on everyone, and it's amazing. It's total Carrie. I mean, it's Carrie and then some. It's amazing. It's metal Carrie. So the whole place is a bloodbath, and the monster kind of turns into this weird amoeba and is starting to like fall apart, splinter off. It kind of lurches onto the sidewalk, the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There, Elizabeth is her own little amoeba of her face, where she's like, "It's me, Elizabeth," and it lurches onto her Walk of Fame star we started with in the film. She's looking at the stars. The glitter falls on her like she always wanted. She dissolves into blood, fades away in a happy. She seemed happy. She was like smiling as she dissolved into blood on her Walk of Fame. It is cleaned the next day by a street sweeper. And that is The Substance. Definitely go see it. Thank you for listening.